Folks, we're going to begin. If you would, we have a terrific program for you. I won't belabor it. It's going to move quick, and we're very, very pleased. This is a very solemn day. It's also a day of remembrance, and it's also a time of healing, and we must bring that together in our thought process of remembering what today is all about and the uniqueness of this memorial, which we will speak about during today's event. I would like to start at this point right now with our invocation. Today, as you know, is the official day of prayer. It's also Patriots Day, and here we are at Patriots Park. So with that, I'd like to introduce, we couldn't have an event without her, is retired U.S. Air Force Master Sergeant Barbara Miller Vaughn for our invocation. Please remove your cover, gentlemen, and participate.
Thank you, Gene. If you would join with me. Father God, creator of the universe, we come to you today remembering the words of the psalmist. I will lift mine eyes unto the hills. From whence comes my help? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. And on this difficult day, Lord, we lift our eyes to you and also our hearts, knowing well that you are the source of our help and our healing. We bring to you our aching and broken hearts for healing that only you can provide. But we also bring our thanksgiving for the sweet memories of those we've loved and lost, and for the precious time we shared. Bless our efforts here today, especially as we remember those names already inscribed on this wonderful memorial stone. And help us also to remember well and faithfully all who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of our great nation. Help us to honor their memories with dignity and solemnity, but also with a sense of celebration for the lives we were privileged to share. We ask you, Father, to bless those who participate today, comfort those who grieve, and be ever present to all of those who've come here today out of love and respect to honor and support them. And we praise your great name, O God, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Gary, Owen. Forward, march. Present colors.
Folks, this is your song. Please join me. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner
please join me in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Please get comfortable as well as you can and pull up some shade where you can. And again, we will make this as enjoyable for all of you. And also, please know that there is an event that's in your program that was reached by the wonderful folks at the new Wave Grill at the Ramada, just down the road on the other side of the pedestrian crosswalk at the Ramada Inn, that has put together a special priced luncheon, which includes your tax and as much iced tea and soft drink as you can. And of course, there are other sorts of things there too as well. But there is a lunch there, so if you'd like to join us, you're certainly welcome to do that. And they put together something that is absolutely wonderful and extremely price effective. Also, the wonderful sounds that you hear throughout this beautiful park are the sounds of the bagpipes, which are going to be played throughout this event by Kevin O'Neill, who is also a Lakewood Ranch cowboy. And Kevin started his career as a young NYPD policeman, being originally from the Bronx. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. And so there's a significant contribution from the standpoint of those that have a relationship. From the NYPD, he moved into the FDNY, where he retired as a firefighter, and now he is Assistant Fire Chief of Suppression at Clearwater. So those sounds come to you from someone that has a significant input into that. So get a chance afterwards. Kevin is also going to join us for lunch afterwards, as will our speakers. So you'll have a chance to meet and greet and talk with those who really understand and who have family members who have been lost today, and also their sons and daughters who made the ultimate sacrifice in the war on terrorism. So the meeting today is totally about reflections. So at this particular point, the program will start with our Mayor John Hollick and the City Council members who were so extremely supportive when this difficult project, and I say difficult from the sense of sensitivity to many of the residents here who unfortunately were residents here and also aware that a component of the terrorist who actually lived amongst the residents here of Venice, lived here, trained here, and plotted the attacks of 9/11. So it was very difficult. However, in reality is we cannot unring a bell. However, moving forward, this has come to a tremendous tribute to the people and the character and the folks, which are all of you and those of you who have joined us today, because this memorial was built and constructed by individuals who made contributions without a single cent of taxpayer dollars, and was also assisted by a local organization here called the Venice Gulf Coast Community Foundation, Gulf Coast Gives, who without their support and assistance and belief in what we were doing could not have happened. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mayor John Hollick.
Thank you, Gene. And before I say any other words, I'd just like to recognize the other council members in the audience today. Jeanette Gates, I see out there, Jim Bennett, David Sherman, and I know Emilio Carlesimo is up here. I don't know if anyone else is here. But thank you all for coming. And I'd like to say that it's truly an honor and a privilege to represent the city at a memorial event such as this. And it's extremely humbling to be here in the presence of so many veterans, those that have assured our freedom, and so many of our first responders, those who would give their life without hesitation to save ours. Do you remember where you were on September 11th, 2001?
Yes, sir.
Were you shopping? Were you having breakfast? Talking on the phone? I remember exactly where I was that day. I was at work, pre-market, before the opening of the New York Stock Exchange, and had the TV on, and within seconds of 8:46 in the morning, knew that a plane had hit the North Tower. I knew at that time it wasn't an accident. I was a former air traffic controller, and I can tell you that an accident like that does not happen without air traffic control knowing it's an accident. Air traffic control was lost that day. They had no idea that plane was going to hit the tower. They had no idea the plane was even there. They totally lost radar contact with it. I will never, ever forget where I was that day. I'll never forget what happened that day. I remember where I was. I remember what happened. We must never forget. We must always remember what they did and what it meant to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Hollick. Community comes together, and again, reflections of where people were and their immediate involvement. And there's a gentleman here who literally had his hand on the pulse as it happened, and he is here with us today. He was the lead detective at that time, and he is now your chief of police. And I'd like to introduce who is now, and I'm very proud to call a friend, is your chief of police, Tom McNulty.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
On behalf of the Venice Police Department, I want to thank both our citizens and our visitors for being here today. On this date 12 years ago, the cowardly acts of terrorists changed our nations, as well as our lives. When the terrorists struck Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the Twin Towers, as well as our Pentagon. Husbands, wives, children, grandparents, assorted family members became victims of these cowardly acts. And in the wake, family lives and family histories are forever changed. We as a nation also changed that day as we watched in horror as the Twin Towers fell to the ground. Many of us fell to our knees, praying for those that perished. Our innocence as a nation, our way of life changed, and we were attacked on our own soil. But as I have said at past memorial services, and I was involved in the investigation to other terrorists, their mission failed. And let me repeat this again because it's important. Their mission failed. Yes, we were temporarily crippled, but we did what we do best as Americans. We stood together, we faced the fight, and as a group we said, never again. The attempts by these cowards to cripple us with chaos had the reverse effect. They didn't weaken us, they made us stronger. On that day, all race and creeds stood together, welded together as a united force known as Americans. As we stand here 12 years later, let this be a lesson to those who threaten us that we will never forget. Let this be a reminder that our weaknesses will always become our strengths. And in closing, I want to take this opportunity to thank our military, their families, as well as our federal, local, and state law enforcement who continue to protect us from these cowardly acts. Folks, we wake up in the morning and most of us worry about what we're going to do that morning. There's a whole legion of dedicated professionals that wake up and guarantee that we will have a morning. Thank you. God bless all of you. And I'm proud to be here with all of you.
It doesn't get any closer to the reality of actually what happened 12 years ago this morning. Again, reflections. Appropriately enough, our congressman could not be here, Vern Buchanan, but it would not be an event without his office being represented by one of our dear colleagues, and Danny, who has participated in every event from the beginning to the first presentation when the first rendering was presented to Congressman Buchanan. I'd like to take this time to have Danny say something. He speaks from himself, but also on behalf of Congressman Vern Buchanan.
As I have stood here many times before, it is always a privilege and a pleasure to stand before a group such as this on a special day for remembrance and reflection on behalf of Congressman Buchanan. And even though he could not be here today, he sends these words to each and every one of you. On September 11th, 2001, we experienced the worst terrorist attack in our nation's history. America's response was swift, unified, and inspiring. We will always remember those innocent men, women, and children who lost their lives in the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. We will never forget the heroic actions of the passengers aboard Flight 93 and the fearless emergency responders who rushed towards the wreckage and devastation at Twin Towers and whose inspiring actions helped save the lives of others. On this anniversary, let us also reflect on the selfless service of our armed services and forces and our intelligence officials who have kept our homeland safe from further attacks on our soil. Despite the death of Osama bin Laden and the capture of many members in this terrorist network, we must never let our guard down. Just 1 year ago today, 4 great Americans lost their lives during an attack on our U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya. The chief responsibility of our government should be to keep the nation and its people safe, both home and abroad. One of the worst days in our nation's history has brought out the best of the American spirit, evidenced by you all here being here today. And I just want to do a little shout out to the Salt of the Earth, Gene and Tim, for getting this charge going quite a few years ago to make this a special place and a special day where we can remember and reflect on what has happened. And it has brought our, yes, go ahead. He never likes it when I do that, but I think it's important. And to all the rest, you know, they've all been mentioned, who has helped make this day a reality. And it will, us all coming together, bring our great nation back to its glory and its feet. 12 years later, September 11th is a day of reverence, remembrance, and reflection. A reminder that America will never crumble in times of distress or difficulty. God bless you, and God bless America.
I should have him on. Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Vern Buchanan and Danny. Thank you for always being a part of this. Something very special about an individual who makes the commitment, who takes an oath, as so many of us have, but also a commitment that goes beyond the comprehension of a sane-minded person, but courageous, is the character of a first responder that, while people are running out of burning buildings, these individuals run into them. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to the Venice Fire Chief, Jim Warman, who's the Fire Chief here in Venice. Jim?
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. I'm honored to represent the Venice Fire Department today as we gather to celebrate this 12th anniversary and recognize the September 11th attacks and those that were lost. I'd like to have the opportunity to share with you a few of the stories from the many that will be told around the country today about those left behind. They remember every day those lost and how they affected their lives. It's with great love and respect that around the country we gather today to honor them. Thank you. 12 years can seem like a blink of an eye, but it also can seem like an unbearable eternity depending on your perspective. We will continue to pray for the families and the friends and those that were lost at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, Air Flights 11, 77, 93, and 175. Much is said about the heroic firefighters, police officers, and Port Authority workers that paid the ultimate price that day to help others, and rightly so. However, I'd like to reflect on some of the reasons why the heroes that were affected that day in entering those towers, the reasons that they took this task. Reasons like 58-year-old Anita Koronsky. You see, Anita wasn't one of those killed on 9/11, but her sister Jeanette was. Jeanette worked on the 94th floor of Tower 1, and Anita puts it this way: "My life began and ended that day. My relationship to my beautiful sister Jeanette was ended on that morning and can never be recovered. I had to learn to live without her and relate to the world differently. I am forever branded as a family member of a 9/11 victim, even if I'm reminded of pleasant times, of memories of our childhood and adult life. I must always end it with her death." It's reasons like 64-year-old Vicky Shoemaker. Vicky says, "On a beautiful, sunny Tuesday morning, September 11, 2001, I lost my son. He was at his job at Cantor Fitzgerald on the 104th floor. We did not hear from him at all. From that fateful moment, my life would never be the same. He was my oldest child, my firstborn. He was an easy child to raise. He was humorous, intelligent, handsome, and charming. When he walked into a room, the entire room lit up." And it's reasons like 41-year-old Mark Berger, who lost his best friend. Mark said, "My life changed on 9/11. He was like a brother to me. He died when the towers collapsed, and I could no longer live or work in New York City." These are a few of the reasons why firefighters and police officers entered those towers 12 years ago today, and why they continue to work tirelessly around this country. Safeguarding people and property is what they do because the mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, and other loved ones that left behind suffer as well as those that are lost. It's with commitment and pride that we work every day to keep those in this country from feeling that kind of grief and pain. Sometimes those efforts come with a price, though, like New York City Fire Lieutenant Charles Gabarini, who died on 9/11. His sister Peggy speaks for all of us when she said, "We miss you, Charlie. We love you, and your boys will always remember." Thank you. God bless.
Let me add to that. Gentleman who has participated in this before, Jerry Hanley, who is the father of Sean Hanley, who was one of the first killed when Tower 2 collapsed. His son Sean Hanley, they are residents here, his parents that is, here in Venice, and unfortunately he couldn't be here to celebrate this day, but his son's name is engraved on that wall as well. I'd like at this point to move things to a point of reality of how this came about before we get into a few speakers. And again, a tremendous debt of gratitude, appreciation, and thanks goes to an organization that believed in this idea and literally bought into it and stepped up and wrote the front of a check with a challenge. I had to match every dollar they put up, or they had to match every dollar I put up, we put up. And with that, this could not have happened in this beautiful town of Venice without the help and assistance from the Gulf Coast Community Foundation. And I'd like to thank the Senior Vice President, Mark Pritchard.
Thank you, Gene, and thank you to all your friends and cowboys out at Lakewood Ranch that made this possible. I just want to take you on a few-minute journey about what this memorial means, not only to this community, but to communities across the United States. We often have to travel to visit memorials of important historic and heroic events wherever they are. So we go to Hawaii to see Pearl Harbor. We go to Gettysburg to see where that great battle, epic battle, took place. We go to Normandy and Omaha Beach to see D-Day. But today, in cities throughout the United States and even in other countries, this memorial has been delivered to them. This memorial honors the lives not only of our armed forces, but the first responders and international citizens from around the world. Allow me just to take just a few minutes to tell you why this memorial and this day of remembrance is like no other. The Twin Towers were completed in 1973. They were the centerpieces of the World Trade Center, staunch symbols of capitalism and international trade. At 110 stories each and over 1,300 feet tall, the Twin Towers provided 10 million square feet of office space. A literal city of 35,000 people a day from 430 companies. They attracted roughly 70,000 visitors and commuters every day. The Twin Towers weighed more than 250,000 tons, and they were built using prefabricated parts, which were bolted and welded together at the site, which dramatically reduced the cost and the time to construct them. So we all know on September 11, 2001, these steel supports became twisted, contorted, and embedded in the debris of Ground Zero. The steel also became an iconic symbol of defiance and strength for our morning action. The Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, they offered and received more than 900,000 applications for just 1,100 pieces of steel from the towers. There was no charge for the steel. Only one of the rules was that they need to be displayed in a public place so people can view them. And now these T-beams and these cross beams have gone to 50 states and 7 countries. Darien, Illinois, Miami, Florida, Rockledge, Florida, Cherville, Indiana, Middletown, Connecticut, Napa, California, Calgary, Alberta, Colorado Springs, Colorado, and in many firehouses like Lanoka Harbor Fire Department in New Jersey or Central Kitsap Fire and Rescue in Washington State. What a story. In Darien, Illinois, Nancy DeCosta's brothers was one of the first firefighters to die in the World Trade Center. And it was a powerful moment when she saw the beam in her community. They brought it here while I was at work, and just seeing it, the memorial. I stopped there the other day, and it was nice to have the memories closer to home where I live, where I can feel like it's closer to me. In Coatesville, Pennsylvania, a special recognition has taken place, and listen to this. Coatesville was the home for Lucan Steel, where the steel was forged for the Twin Towers 40 years ago or more today. Now 10 beams have been returned to their place of origin. And a descendant of the Lucans family, Scott Houston, said they were born here, but they lived and died in New York. And the most fitting place, I think, for where the Twin Towers steel has been memorialized is part of the USS New York amphibious transport. 6.8 tons of steel were treated and smelted for the use as a ship's bow stem during construction. Commander Quinton, Navy Program Manager overseeing the construction, said, "The significance of where the World Trade Center steel is located on the 684-foot long ship symbolizes the strength and resiliency of the citizens of New York as it sails forward throughout the world. It sends a message of America becoming stronger as a result, coming together as a country and ready to move forward as we make our way through the world." So as we stand and sit here together today next to our twisted piece of steel of the Twin Towers, we pray for the victims and their families. We also pray that our first responders and our armed forces will always grow stronger together, ready to move forward in a world of uncertainty and danger. Thank you very much.
Listening to that, it dawned on me, what are the chances of that being part of our young students' curriculum in today's world of political correctness about teaching the history of 9/11 and what has followed from that. So moving forward, this community came together, and is Dave Fouché? Is Dave here with us from J2 Solutions? Okay, well, on behalf of Dave and Jess, the partners and owners of J2 Solutions, they stepped forward at the request of a mailing that was done by John Ryan, your president of the Venice Chamber of Commerce, and they, like first responders, responded to the need of what we did, and they literally rallied the craftsmen, the tradesmen, the vendors, the providers that gave gifts in kind, also gifts of their trade, to make this memorial a reality. And our thanks goes out to all of you that are here who participated in that and who were part of the trades group to do that. And we thank the organizers of that, J2 Solutions, who on behalf of my working partner, Tim Larson, who is the brain trust about construction, because I have a great deal of difficulty with that. I have difficulty with Legos, so I was going nowhere with that. At this point right now, there's an interesting portion of the segment, and we'll get into some of the other individuals, but I'd like to take this time to introduce to you, who will again come in and out of the balance of today's event, who has come here from Delray, Florida, who has a TV program that many of you watch daily, Monday through Friday on Trento Vision, and he is the executive director and founder of what is a very powerful program that conveys a message about what needs to be done in our history and our culture, and also our awareness of what is happening in our country in regard to Sharia law, in regard to jihad, and the almost foremost authority on terrorism. I'd like to introduce who is now a very dear friend, who has participated long distance across the state, if you will, in helping getting this launched and has been following this event over the last couple of years. And I'd like to introduce you to my friend and yours, Tom Trento.
American Airlines Flight 11, Boston to Los Angeles, 81 passengers. United Airlines 175, Boston to Los Angeles, 56 passengers. American Airlines 77, Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles, 58 passengers. United Airlines Flight 93, Newark to San Francisco, 37 passengers. 251 passengers plus 4 crews 12 years ago, right now, entered a moment in history unaware to them that morning, unaware to their families, unaware to their friends, unaware to the world, that indeed that moment on that hallowed day 12 years ago, the world and this country as we know it would change. Do not leave this Patriots Park without walking to that monument, putting your hand on that monument, and recognizing individuals motivated by that event and the death of 251 passengers and nearly 3,000 innocent Americans. Do not leave this park without touching that black granite and asking yourself the question, what does it take for a man or a woman to volunteer by their own volition to step forward and engage in an activity that may indeed result in your name being engraved in granite? Good morning, Tom Trento here to say hello to everybody. How you all doing today? What's going on? We got the North over here. You alive, North? Can we hear you a little bit? We got the North over here and the South over here. Say hello, South. Is this a beautiful day or what? It's a solemn day without question. It's a hallowed day without question. And we're here to recognize those elements. But I would be remiss standing in front of flags at half-mast. I would be remiss if I didn't also challenge everybody here to recognize that this is a day of anger, of indignation. This is a day of righteous anger, righteous indignation. What took place and what is taking place is no small feat, no small activity. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the definitive battle on in the epic of mankind ever. We are in a battle that has the capability to bring about, no hyperbole here, to bring about the end of the world as we know it now. And there is a determined enemy, unknown by this administration, and sadly the administration before, unknown in its essence. Terrorism, that's not the definition of what we're fighting. Extremism, not the definition of what we're fighting. I don't know about you, but those of you who have served here know it's difficult to defeat an enemy you cannot name. We are in a battle where more names will be engraved on more granite in this country, and the prospect of winning going forward, as I see it and many others that do the work I do, is slim to none in terms of defeating this enemy. You see, this enemy, which is Islam, I'm not qualifying radical Islam or Sharia Islam. The enemy is Islam. It's not our job to tell Islamic scholars that they're wrong in their belief about Dar al-Hijra, Dar al-Islam. One of the doctrines of Islam is Islam, not radical Islam or moderate Islam. Islam, one of the doctrines, one of the defining elements of that system, and Islam is primarily a governmental political system with a religious veneer. It is dedicated, when you apostatize as a Muslim out of Islam, you become an enemy of the state, a traitor, because Islam is a state supremacist totalitarian system. What I'm saying right here is unknown to John Brennan, the head of the CIA, unknown to him. It's unknown to Valerie Jarrett, chief advisor, and Susan Rice, to this president on national security. Islam, by its doctrine, by its scholars, is in a constant state of war. Dar al-Harb, constant state of war against the West, the infidel, the Jews, the Christians. Until we understand and have a war footing that is constant, the enemy will prevail. Maybe not kinetically, but there's a cultural Islamic jihad going on in this world, equally, if not more deadly and dangerous to Western civilization. And you will see it today manifested in kumbaya interfaith meetings, where the Islamic subtle infiltration, IO, influence operation modalities are taking place. I know I'm hitting you with a lot of stuff today, but we would be remiss for those names engraved on that granite and for whom those flags are flown at half-mast if we did not honestly speak out about the war that we're in the middle of, folks.
Time I have here. Check the clock.
Okay, a couple of points and then we will move on. It is critical as humans. I happen to be a Christian. It is critical as a Christian to make a distinction between the system of Islam and a human being who is a Muslim. I am commanded and I desire to love all people. I do not hate, though I'm listed by the United States military as a hate organization. I'm listed by our group here, and some of our guys are right here, the Southern Poverty Law Center, as a hate organization. We only hate individuals that hate that flag and want to destroy the Constitution. It's the only people we hate. They could be any religion. They fall into that. They're my enemy. Everyone here, ideological enemy. And if it escalates to the kinetic component, as it does, then we're doing everything we can to keep that from happening here. There is a love and concern, and if you watch our show and the United West Counterterrorism Organization, we're always talking about assisting and helping Muslims who want to leave the death cult in many respects of Islamic jihad and come over to the United States, assimilate, be part of this country like my parents and grandparents did coming over from Italy. Any Italian people? Any Italian people here? All right. Macaroni at 12 o'clock, all right? And we're here. We've done that. We've worked with Muslims who have left Islam and converted or not converted out. And I have a public standing offer. Any Muslim anywhere that needs help, it's very difficult to get out of that system. We're here to help them. So we don't hate Muslims. We hate an ideology that is committed by doctrine. It's factually necessary. In fact, if you have taken an oath as a military member of this country or an elected official, you do not have an obligation not to understand the threat doctrine of Islam. You are mandated by federal law to factually understand the threat doctrine of Islam. And when you excise out of the intelligence and military lexicon in 2009 the words jihad, the words Muslim, the word Sharia, and you hand tie and handcuff Some of the best warriors on the face of the earth. Top tier team, SEAL Team 6, Aaron and Brian Bill, engraved over there. And Benghazi. When you handcuff by ridiculous rules of engagement, if you're trained to be a warrior, to defend Americans and kill the enemy, and you go and do State Department functions of winning the hearts and minds, the enemy laughs and wonders where the lethality is in America anymore. America has lost its lethality as a doctrine of warfare, though the warriors choose to implement the doctrine of lethality engaged in combat. And for you folks involved in activism here in the States, there's a lethal doctrine of ideological warfare to defeat the Sharia-compliant Islamic doctrine in the schools, in the churches, in the elected arenas. A lot to do. But federal officials, from the president down, are not allowed to not factually understand the doctrine of Islamic jihad. Once you understand it, you'll be in a better position to defeat it, which we're not. A couple of points I'd like to leave with you. I am getting weary, very weary, of hearing the president and others say that America is war weary. War weary. I don't know what war weary means, but I do know this. When the enemy has a doctrine of eternal warfare against you and has targeted you, you don't have the luxury of being war weary, particularly if you are the commander-in-chief. Those words should never come out of the commander-in-chief's mouth. War weary can be reversed very quickly. Let the boys go, the SEAL teams. Let the Rangers go. Let the Marines Force Recon go. Let these guys do what we've trained them to do in theater, and the dynamics of this kinetic battle worldwide, because guess what? As much as the commander-in-chief hoped Al-Qaeda was gone, Al-Qaeda's not going anywhere. It has to be defeated, killed continually, and there's ways of doing that. All right, just one last point here. Over here in the United States and in the West, but primarily here, and particularly in this state, we have been infiltrated by an organization called the Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood is a for-real organization. They're card-carrying people, and they have a doctrine. It's been printed, they live it, they breathe it, and right now there's at least 6 card-carrying members of the Muslim Brotherhood. And when we were saying this 2 years ago, Trento, you're crazy, you're a conspiratorialist. But now, as the Brotherhood has fallen apart in some places in the Middle East, it's advancing here. There's 6 card-carrying members of the Brotherhood in the White House, influencing this commander-in-chief in terms of his foreign policy and military doctrine. That's why you're seeing the kerfuffle and the nonsense going on in Syria right now. Syria should be we should sell tickets to Syria and show how Islam qua Islam, Sunni versus Shia, kill each other as they have for 1,400 years. The West should look at that and say, this is what Islam is. What right do any of these people have coming into the United States and telling us how to run our country? Muslim Brotherhood has infiltrated America. I have with me a few of the books that myself and some others put together. Sharia, The Threat to America. At the end, we're going to sell those. But I have 50 copies of Obsession, Radical Islam's War Against the West. You can have these for free. These 2 books will give you a phenomenal intellectual and analytical understanding of the Islamic jihad war we are in. Ladies and gentlemen, for the sake of those flags, of that granite, I pray that there's more individuals that step up like Gene Sweeney. Let's give him a rousing round of applause. And where is Honey? Is Honey anywhere? Where is Honey? Honey is the honey part of Gene. Behind every great man, there's a greater woman. So.
You'll be back. Don't go away. He'll be back. Also with these books, I'll be providing a free Funk and Wagnall dictionary so you can understand some of the words that Tom shared with you. He's a lot. If political correctness bothers you, you have to look inside. It's what it's about. We can't candy coat it. We're here, and it is what it is. Also about an oath that Tom referred to, there is no expiration date on an oath. Moving forward and moving towards individuals who are here, who are residents of this beautiful town, City of Venice, is the father of their son who was lost that day, was killed that day, Mr. Thomas Murphy, and their son Patrick Sean Murphy. I did get that right? You got it. Yeah. With all the Sean Patricks and the Patrick Seans and the Edward Murphys and whatever, Gene Sweeney seems to be easy to remember. I'd like to, at this particular point, have Tom Murphy, resident here, whose son was killed that day, worked for Marshall McClellan. I'd also like to have you folks, while you're over at the memorial, to please recognize two beautiful wreaths that have been planted there. One is from the Nova Republican Club here in Venice, and the other is a beautiful wreath by the Republican Club of South Sarasota County. So again, they will remain there forever, as far as I'm concerned, as will those names that are inscribed in perpetuity. At this point, I'd like to introduce your neighbor resident, Mr. Thomas Murphy.
Good morning, friends. I'm not angry today. I'm sad. Lori and I are here to honor the memory of our son, Patrick Sean Murphy. He left behind his wife of 10 years, a son age 4, and a daughter age 2. They are all living in Florida now and thriving. True evidence of Patrick's enduring legacy. It has been widely reported that 3 of the plane hijackers were trained here at the Venice airport. In fact, one of them had overtaken the plane, which crashed into Tower 1, where Patrick was working on the 97th floor. They were supplied by distant plotters with over $100,000 deposited to their checking account at SunTrust Bank here in Venice. Between September 4th and September 10th, they wired approximately $22,000 back to their ringleaders in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates. These 5 plotting terrorists are prisoners in Guantanamo and are on trial for conspiracy and over 150 counts, including the murder of 3,000 innocent civilians who just went to work that day. As of August 23rd this year, the Military Commission, headed by Brigadier General Mark Martins, has received more than 40 hours of testimony from 14 witnesses during pre-trial procedures. Additional hearings are scheduled for this month and will be witnessed in Guantanamo by 5 families representing their lost loved ones. The Commission has established a lottery system and selects families wishing to fly to Dulles Airport in Washington and then by military aircraft to Guantanamo to bear witness to the trial. For those who believe this trial would be more efficiently handled in civilian federal court, keep in mind that unlike federal court, Miranda warnings are not necessary on the battlefield when capturing a suspected terrorist. Hearsay evidence can be admitted at trial, and chain of evidence is often lacking on the battlefield and may be disregarded at trial. Further, and to quote General Martin, these assertions ignore that the government is prosecuting 5 persons accused in one case for capital charges with nearly 3,000 deceased victims in the largest criminal investigation in U.S. history. Pursuing our values is a worthwhile undertaking and one that would take time in any court. Finally, we will always keep in our hearts forever our Patrick and his family, and of course the other 3,000 patriots who gave their lives that day. Our family thanks you for this memorial in this city we have loved for the past 20 years. And just another final note, last night my daughter sent us a picture of a bay in New Jersey where Patrick used to fish. His boat is still parked there in the boatyard. The owner of the boatyard refuses to remove it. It was a sundown picture with a light off in the distance. We like to think that that light was Patrick talking to us. Thank you all.
Talk about commitment. I want to thank you all at this particular point for dealing with this. We're moving along quite well. It is September. It's a beautiful September day. It's a little warm. But then again, if we can't put up with a little bit of discomfort on a day like this, I think we need to look, and I appreciate that, and that's not directed in any way other than the fact that I appreciate you tolerating and dealing with us. It only happens once a year at this particular time, and it's very, very important. Following that wonderful introduction that Tom shared with him about his son, I'd like to invite at this point an individual who has spent 30 years in the New York City, a captain in the a captain in New York City Department of Corrections for 30 years, and who was there and who worked there, and is also the president of the Blue Knights, who are here joining us today, and that's Rory. Come on up here, Rory McConnell, another former New York City resident.
I'm going to ask you all to bear with me. I'm not a usual public speaker, although my members might contest that. I want to thank everyone for coming today and for allowing me to represent the Blue Knights in New York City at this ceremony. Thanks to Gene and the Salt of the Earth Foundation for creating this memorial. I am the current president of an international law enforcement club chapter here in Manatee and Sarasota counties. We're Florida 18. We helped to support the finances on this, and we've escorted some I-beams down to this area. We are the largest law enforcement club in the world with 20,000 members in 26 countries. We are the only club that is 90% all law enforcement officers with sworn powers of arrest. We also cover all aspects of law enforcement from federal to local. I'm also the co-organizer of the Manatee County 9/11 Remembrance Ride. This evening we will be having our 7th annual Remembrance Ride in Manatee County. The 3 co-organizers of that are from New York, One was in the financial, and one was an MP in the military career. I was born in New York. I served with the correction departments in so far, and it was 20 years, not 30, Gene, but thanks for the extra 10. Most people don't know the correction departments are unseen, and you don't hear a lot about it because we're behind the walls. New York City's force had over 12,000 men and women on it on September 11th. Our daily census in the New York City Department of Correction was over 24,000 detention inmates daily. This is almost as large as some of the small cities in the U.S. Most think Rikers Island is one jail, is a complex of 9 jails, a hospital, powerhouse, bakery, transportation security divisions, print shops, metal shops, courtrooms, laundry, farm, a recycling compost facility, training facilities, and now the current location of the New York City Secure Emergency Management Team bunker. That bunker was in Building 7 when Mayor Giuliani was escorted out of that building as it was coming down. That was the high-tech building that was lost. The most secure place in New York City is Rikers Island, so they built it there. Prior to my career in law enforcement, I worked up the street from the Trade Center in the financial district. I spent a couple of years in many lunches in the basement of the World Trade Center or out in the rotunda. I can't tell you how many times I was there in the shadows in the park, how many friends and family who worked in the 7 buildings of the Trade Center, or the buildings across the street on all 4 sides that were damaged and destroyed that day. The Corrections Emergency Service Unit members responded to the site on 9/11 as instructed by our department. The other staff members of the Correction Department were ready to respond. We had teams of 20 to 40 officers with 10-member teams, with a captain assigned to every team assembled in the 18 commands of that department. We were on standby that whole day and night, not knowing what was going to transpire. We didn't have the specific training or equipment to respond with our brothers in the NYPD or the fire department, but we were standing by as needed. Within the days preceding the attacks, the presidents of our unions went to the city to assist and ask where our members could assist. As we didn't have the recovery training, they asked us to go to the medical examiner's office. From day 3 after 9/11, the New York City Correction Department secured the medical examiner's office, the property around it. All members went there on their own time. This was not official duty. We escorted the ambulances in, we stood honor guard, we assisted with securing the area, assisted the detectives and the medical staff as directed, documenting chain of custody of everything that arrived on that recovery site, from the recovery site. Over 10,000 unidentified bone and tissue fragments were recovered. They are stored outside the medical examiner's office in what is now called Memorial Park. As of August 2011, 1,845 remains have been recovered. 1,631 victims have been identified, while 1,122 remain unidentified. The remains are expected to be removed to a repository behind a wall in the museum this year. Before I retired in New York, I started to work for a private security company called Eddington Associates. He had received the contract to secure Ground Zero. After the recovery effort had been completed, it was time to rebuild. I was a security supervisor on the reconstruction side of the World Trade Center. I worked from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday after my Monday to Friday, 7 to 3 at the Correction Department. Excuse me. I supervised 6 security officers at the top of the ramp, the 2 path tunnels, the lower level of the 7 stories down, which the workers referred to as the hole. The private family viewing areas and public viewing area on the south side of the site was also my area. During the 13 months I worked there, thousands of people passed that viewing area while I worked. People would come up and ask and talk, ask about New York. They were from all over the world. It is one young lady that I felt true sorrow for. Excuse me. From the impact it had on her. It was almost 3 a.m. Saturday night. The officer at the viewing area gate called me that a woman wanted to speak to me. I walked over. She explained to me that she had moved to New York after college, met her fiancé, working in the financial district. He was in the tower and was lost that day. She had a 7 a.m. flight out. She had tried to resume normalcy in her life in New York, but to no avail. She was miserable, was leaving to return to her hometown. She wanted to say goodbye to her loved one last time before going to the airport. After letting her interviewing area, she said her goodbyes, thanked me, and moved on with her life. I had 4 brothers in the armed forces, 1 in each branch during Vietnam, 3 in country, 1 did 2 tours. When I said I was joining the service, they took me out back. You know what happened next. Little brother did not go in the armed services. I went into law enforcement instead, Rikers Island. They all experienced loss of loved ones and comrades. Until 2011, I had only lost my father. All my grandparents had passed before I was old enough to know true loss. The tragic loss of a loved one is the hardest. Since moving to Florida, I have lost my son, my brother, and my mother. Let us all remember on Patriots Day, the 2,977 lost on 9/11. 2606 from New York, first responders and civilians, the 4 on the planes that Tom spoke about, 246, and the 125 at Pentagon, 55 of military personnel. All the military personnel that are dying today overseas. Let us not forget to protect our freedoms and rights here and abroad. Just to touch on what Tom said, I never heard Tom speak before, or his venue, or his stance. I worked in jail. The largest group that was growing in the 80s and 90s was the Muslims. You wouldn't believe how they attack the poverty-stricken people in this country and recruit them. Their jihad is against our Constitution. Their state is opposite of ours. Their religion is their state. Our state and our religion is separate. That's one of the reasons they want us to convert. They want the whole world to convert, and they will not stop. They won't. It's been going on since the Crusades. So it doesn't matter what your religion is. If you're not Muslim, you're not one of them. And the young people here, you'll see it, and we'll be gone, and your children will be seeing it. So think about it. Thank you.
It's kind of like the situation you have to be there in order to really get the sense of what these folks are sharing with you for those of us who were not there. Moving forward, it's very appropriate that we have a Gold Star mother from the state of Florida. She's a great gal, Dee Mills, who has been directly in contact with me for the last few years, helping with various different VFW Post, American Legion Post, Marine Corps League organizations as well, in getting them to reach within their own organizations to help with donations to help their respective fallen heroes from the various different regions. A Gold Star mother, as those of you that may not know, is a mom or a dad who has lost a son or a daughter. Dee Mills is the mother of Sergeant Lee Mills, who was killed in Iraq in 2006. She is from the Tampa Bay area, and she is with us today, and will be with us at lunch as well, for those of you that would like to meet and greet and speak with all of our speakers. Dee Mills, please.
Well, I never knew that I would be a speaker. Thanks, Lee. I appreciate that. What I want to do first is just tell you that this morning I started with reflection, like all of us, and I started about thinking about my son Lee, that he was a senior in high school when 9/11 happened, and it was a defining moment for him. He didn't wonder what he was going to be doing in the future. He did early enlistment into the United States Marine Corps. As soon as he graduated, he started with a recruiter, and in September he went to Parris Island, where his life was changed forever. He was a natural born warrior. I was not surprised by his decision, I must add. Every time he would get birthday money, we went to Army surplus store and he bought something digi or camouflaged. He even took his daddy's field jacket from Vietnam and some corn sacks and made a ghillie suit, excuse me, so when he was paintballing he could be the best. I love that young man, and I will all the days of my life. He was in the Marine Corps at Camp Pendleton for 4 years, and he called me and he said, "Mom, I know you're not going to understand this, but I've changed companies so I can go and fight in this war. I don't feel right about not doing my part." He said, "It's sort of like being an Olympic athlete and training all your life and never participating. I've got to go." Well, I understood because I knew my son from the beginning to the end. He always had a smile on his face. He was pen sergeant at 21, which tells you about his character. Most of the men that served under him were older than him, but all of them have called me and told me they would have gone into hell with him, and they did, literally. Their hearts are all broken. And don't ever think that a soldier's love for one another is that of a brother. It's greater than that. It's that of a mother's love. I would go into a burning building for either one of my children. I would step in front of a bullet or whatever it took to protect them. And they do that for each other. That's a mother's love. That's why it's so hard for them to go forward. Now, I've written just a small part, and it's what I ask of all of y'all. Don't feel sorry for our families, and what I'm about to read will tell you why. And thank y'all for being here. From a Gold Star mother's heart. Our sons and daughters did not die in an accident or from a deadly disease. The loss of a child would be no less painful if they did pass away in this manner. What I wish to share is that our children put themselves in harm's way as an unselfish act to make a better life for their brothers in arms, their families, their country, and the families of those in the country in which they engage in battle. I might add, just in that order. It is so hard to live a life without our beloved in it, but God's mercy is new every day. We ask only one thing of our fellow Americans: live the life of freedom, knowing the price, and cherishing it as a gift given by our sons and daughters throughout the generations. You have not earned this freedom unless you have served on the battlefield, nor can you ever pay for it. At best, you can respect the price of freedom by making your own sacrifice to make our country a better place to live for each other. We must protect our Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I was waiting for my son to come home from the battlefield, and now he awaits my homecoming. That day will arrive, but for now, I must pay my own price for freedom daily by upholding the very oath that our military swears by. God bless you all, and thank you for having me here today.
No one loves you like your mom. You know, we have to look forward, and to the young people around here, and a great thanks to these young Marines from Venice Middle School, the young Marines who are assisting us with programs and passing out water and helping with chairs and all of that. And we have a great future in those young individuals. I am so very proud to have with us here for the 4th year from the beginning when we started with the idea in meetings up at Lakewood Ranch as to where the memorial was ultimately going to go. Started with her sister Gabrielle, and then as Gabrielle went on to college, her sister Ava, who is with us today, who is so incredibly special and a great contribution to the youth as a role model and as a fine young person. Ava is 16 years old, and I didn't even mention her years last year because it's incredibly overwhelming. She is a senior at Venice High School. She's the past president of the Young Conservatives of Sarasota, which has provided the 9/11 Never Forget flag memorial that you see planted out there, which they planted yesterday, over 3,000 flags, which they have done for the last 4 years. This year, the flag memorial was set up with the help of the 6th grade class of Venice Christian School and Iron Patriots. Ava's new organization towards supporting the veterans and activity, which she is a part of, is the Iron Patriots. Currently, Ava serves her community through her involvement with the Venice High School Zoology Club, the Key Club, and Chamber Orchestra. This is the 5th year Ava has played the violin as a member of the Sarasota Youth Orchestra. Ava is a founding member of the Strings Attached, a student lead string quartet, and is a member of the National Honor Society. Outside of school, Ava is passionate about horses. She is an avid rider and will begin competing this year. Ava also hopes to one day attend the University College of Veterinary Medicine. I am so pleased and so proud to have a young friend, Ava Dorasamy, whose parents are immigrants of their grandparents who are from India, who her grandfather was a Hindu, converted to Christianity, served as a missionary in Africa, where her father was born, who's here today, Raj. And the girls and their family are an incredible indication of what we have in the hope, which is a reality moving forward to our future. Ava Dorasamy.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney, for inviting me to speak today. Good morning, everyone. It is truly an honor to be here. My name is, as you heard, Ava Dorasamy. I'm 16 years old and currently attending Venice High School. I was 11 years old when my family and a group of students and their families first assembled the 9/11 Never Forget flag memorial you see over there today. This year, I want to thank my former principal, Jerry Frimmel, and the 6th grade students of Venice Christian School who enthusiastically accepted my organization's invitation to come and help assemble this year's flag memorial for all of us today. I was a 1st grader at Venice Christian School when the Twin Towers were attacked in 2001. Back then, I did not fully understand the impact of the event. However, as I grew older, my parents carefully explained the actual events of that terrible day. It was then that I realized for the first time that there are people who dream of the destruction of our country. Now, in high school, I have conversations with my grandfather about our wonderful country and why it is that our freedoms are like no other country on the history of this earth. We talk about other constitutions people live by, that is, if they have constitutions at all. It is only the American Constitution that acknowledges the individual as having natural, God-given rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of the individual's happiness, and therefore cannot be taken away by government. No other constitution elevates and protects the rights of the individual in this way. All other constitutions give degrees of the rights to its people as the government sees fit. And therefore, since government gives, it can and will take away. I have learned that since the beginning of time, people who crave power have always tried to make others a part of a collective that they themselves would control. This was and is the goal of terrorists who seek to attack us. If they had a chance to weaken us and perhaps destroy us, they would want to one day rule over us. My grandfather, in his own study of history, literature, and philosophy, has shown me that this very concept of natural law is at the heart of everything in our history and what has made America that shining light on a hill. This God-given freedom of the individual protected by the Constitution is why America is exceptional. This is the reason why we have such a great sense of love and desire to gather here today and remember the 2,977 people who went to work or traveled as free people that day in 2001, but who never returned to their homes and loved ones. It is why we take great effort to remember the events of 9/11 and why we take great effort in asking others to also remember. It is why we have a deep, deep love for our country and for the military servicemen and women who give the ultimate sacrifice to keep our country free. It is why we are here today sharing in tears with moms and dads who lost their sons and daughters. It is why we honor our veterans. You see, it means something. It means something, and we remember. God bless you, and God bless America.
Sleep well, knowing our future is in good hands. At this point, I'd like to introduce the mom and dad, Camilla and David Labonte, who are the parents of Darren James Labonte. A tremendous book was written about him called The Triple Agent. And I will not share anything to take away from what his dad is going to talk to you about their son, who was a very interesting individual, an unbelievable individual when you hear of his contribution, his commitment, and the type of warrior Darren James Labonte is all about. I'd like to introduce his father, David Labonte.
My son Darren lost his life on December 30th, 2009 in Fort Chapman, Afghanistan. Darren was one of 7 CIA officers killed that day in one of the most tragic events in CIA history. In December 2009, a group of CIA's top terrorist hunters gathered at a secret base in Afghanistan to greet a rising superstar, Houman Khalil al-Balawi, a Jordanian who had infiltrated the upper ranks of Al-Qaeda. For months, he had sent shocking revelations from inside the terrorist network and now promised to help the CIA assassinate Osama bin Laden's top deputy and provide critical information on the whereabouts of bin Laden. Instead, as he stepped from his car, al-Balawi detonated a 30-pound bomb, instantly killing Darren and 6 other CIA operatives and giving the agency its worst loss of life in decades. As I pondered what to write that would capture the essence of Darren, I would start by saying he was the most loving and caring human being that I'd ever known. He would certainly be remembered for his adventures, travel, intrigue, and valor. However, Darren cared more about his fellow man than most. His compassion for all people, regardless of religion, creed, or color, was the attributes that I most admired, even though I did not share the same warmth for mankind. He saw the greater good in everyone. As a little boy, Darren achieved results that were astounding. Everyone loved him. Teachers, peers, competitors, family all marveled about his wonderful human being, so full of life, yet so focused on the tasks in hand. Darren played organized sports from a very early age, so young that we always had to sign waivers. He was just outstanding. I remember that he was one that always seemed to get that clutch hit to win the baseball game or to run for a touchdown to win the football game. His focus and will was amazing. Yet he did not allow himself to be stereotypical. In his senior year of high school, he chose not to play any sports and dedicated himself to playing in the high school band, which, by the way, killed me. Many college scouts were looking at Darren to play ball at their institution. In fact, 2 Major League Baseball teams offered Darren a minor league contract, which he turned down. He didn't envision himself leading that type of life. His passion for excellence was also embodied in the fact that he studied the martial arts from the time he can walk and achieved a 4th-degree black belt. He not only enjoyed the physical aspect of controlling one's body, but he delved deeply into the spiritual aspect of meditation and mind control. He was truly a model student of the arts. To my dismay, while I was in a job transfer status, Darren joined the Army. Not only the Army, but the Rangers. I swallowed hard as I served during Vietnam and did not want that for my son. But I supported him and assumed that this may be the time that this adventure just might be too tough even for Darren, but I was wrong. Not only did he accomplish becoming a Ranger, the accounts by his superiors and peers were that Darren was the poster boy for the Rangers. He influenced all around him, officers and enlisted alike. In fact, he turned down a commission because the Army would not promise him that he would return to the Ranger Battalion. Camille and I endured the 4 years of his service watching CNN and praying for his safety as Bosnia was in turmoil and the Middle East was heating up. Our prayers were answered as he was discharged and soon married Rachel. Darren's calling was law enforcement. In fact, his master's degree in public administration and criminal justice. He started a string of unbelievable accomplishments over the next few years that were truly incredible. As he was serving as a police officer in Libertyville, Illinois, the events of 9/11 occurred. That would change his and our lives forever. Darren was so distraught over the loss of life by terrorists, he vowed to make a difference, and make a difference he did. Darren joined the U.S. Marshals, which he received a Director's Award for Leadership at their FLETC Training Center. He went on to become a team leader in their highly regarded Rapid Response Unit in Chicago. That wasn't enough. He was putting bad guys away all right, but not the terrorists that struck our country. He then joined the FBI, where he received 2 awards at Quantico, which, by the way, had never been done before, the Director's Award for Leadership and Top Gun. He was then assigned to the New York branch of the FBI, where he worked in concert there with Washington on counterterrorism. While he was doing a lot of work there, he still was not making the progress that he wanted, as Al-Qaeda was still making inroads and Americans were dying. Darren joined the CIA, and because of his experience, he quickly assumed a hybrid role. He was a case officer and an SAD officer. He continued on to serve in Iraq and then Afghanistan, constantly closing in on the enemy. The CIA considered Darren the tip of the spear, as he was one of our top agents in tracking down and destroying Al-Qaeda operatives. He had multiple successes in Iraq and Afghanistan over a 4-year period, but now he and his wife Rachel had just given birth to my granddaughter Raina, and it was time for him to leave the battlefield. He accepted an assignment in Jordan and was responsible for counterterrorism, and we all thought that he'd be behind the scenes, not the epicenter anymore. Unfortunately, we were wrong. Darren's passion to prevent another 9/11 tragedy brought him closer and closer to the enemy, and consequently, he lost his life. Darren's valor is most epitomized in this excerpt from a eulogy given by the station commander in Jalalabad. At another place and in another time, Darren would have been the first to stand with Leonidas at Thermopylae Pass against 1,000-to-1 odds, knowing that they would not be victorious, but willing to sacrifice themselves only to buy a little time for the Greek army to rally elsewhere. Darren would have been the one to shout, "Mullen Lobby, come and get them," to the Persian army, demanding that they lay down their weapons and surrender. And Darren would have been totally content with this situation, simply knowing that he was serving in the finest of company, because that's all he ever asked for in return for his faithful and fearless service to his nation. His loss leaves a significant gap in the lines and a real void in all of us who served with him. But my hope is that we can keep him with us by remembering what he meant to each of us. So I will not say farewell. I will only say, no worries, brother. We'll carry on the colors onward from here. Mullen Lobby. See you on the other side, Spartan. I consider myself the most fortunate father in the world. I was Darren's dad for 35 years.
Talk about a world-class lineup of folks who understand what this is all about today and moving forward, and never forgetting of the contribution of the civilians, the first responders, the fallen military heroes, our agents, our special forces, and also a very unique group too as well. By the way, Darren's name is on that wall with his other colleagues as well. And I'd like at this point to introduce, there are 81 Navy SEALs names who are on that wall. The Navy SEAL Foundation has been a wonderful organization to help in offset and defray some of the cost involved with engraving names on the wall. Freedom isn't free, and with that goes the ongoing expense, which as long as I live, I'll work to get as many names engraved on that wall. Of the 81 Navy SEALs, and we did not pick out strictly just the Navy SEALs, there's 342 names on that wall of Marines and of Army, Air Force, Navy, Coast Guard as well, 342 Floridian fallen heroes, as well as every Marine that has been killed to date is on that wall from Florida. And we still have a long way to go. As of last week, there's 6,627 names. And hopefully, with your help, continued help, we'll do that. Representing an organization that helped us with those names, of those 81 names that are on that wall, 2 are recipients of the Medal of Honor. And with that, I'd like to introduce a Navy SEAL himself, retired Navy Captain Norman Olson.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here representing the Navy SEAL Foundation and the Naval Special Warfare community that it serves. Before I get into my prepared remarks, 3 things popped into my head while I was listening. Of course, Tom Trento is my kind of a guy. And last night we had dinner. And in the course of dinner, he asked me if I knew a certain... he said he had a cousin that was a SEAL. So when I asked him who it was, he named him, and I said, my God. I said, he and I went through training together in 1955 in Class 15. Now the classes today are up in the 300, so you can sort of put that in perspective. But it's a small world. The other, well, there was 2 other things. The other thing was when they mentioned the USS New York, that was christened in the name of one of the SEALs that has been posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, Lieutenant Murphy. And lastly, not really lastly, but you'll be hearing from him, is a gentleman that I established a very close relationship with after Extortion 17. Greg Bill is the father of one of those men. And we worked very closely with the commands when these things happen. And over the years, the last few years, I've been on a number of events where we've shared the podium. A great guy. One thing I want to mention, which is I find interesting, even for me, there were 17 SEALs killed, and there were Army people, the pilots, and there were some Air Force folks. But in addition to that, there were 5 what we call basically technical support people that go in the field with the SEALs. Dog handler, 2 explosive ordnance disposal men, a special communicator, and this puts it really in context about how the technology is going today, a cryptologist. And these guys go in the field with them continually. That same evening, when they were lost, there were about 10 more operations identical to it going on at the same time. Gives you a little sense of how heavily engaged they are. 12 years ago, we were attacked by a nameless foe, soon to be known as Al-Qaeda. In the immediate aftermath, SEALs had boots on the ground in Afghanistan, initially conducting special reconnaissance missions in support of the Marines. Subsequently, SEAL operations during the invasion of Afghanistan were conducted with Task Force K-Bar. It was a joint special operations task force comprised of Navy SEALs, Army Special Forces, Air Force Special Tactics teams, and Special Operations Forces from Norway, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and Denmark, all under the command of a Navy SEAL captain. Over the course of 6 months, they killed or captured over 200 Taliban and Al-Qaeda fighters and destroyed tens of thousands of pounds of weapons and ordnance. For 12 years, SEAL warriors have taken and continue to take the fight to the enemy in some of the most austere places in the planet. And 1 year ago, 4 Patriots, including 2 former SEALs, were killed on one of those austere places called Benghazi. 81 of those SEALs have made the ultimate sacrifice and are honored on this hallowed memorial for their service to our nation. Additionally, there are untold numbers carrying the scars of operating continuously at the tip of the spear. While the loss of 81 SEALs could be seen by many as minuscule in the grand scheme of things, but when measured against a force of less than 2,400 SEALs, it's akin to the U.S. Navy losing an aircraft carrier while sailing in harm's way. Additionally, the required training cycle to fully qualify a SEAL is 2 years, and with an attrition rate of 75%, they cannot be mass-produced and they cannot be created after emergencies occur. Under all circumstances, SEAL operators must be able to face the foe with total focus on the mission. In their case, they can do this knowing that there is an organization committed to supporting them and their families while they are in harm's way. This provides them peace of mind that is as valuable as any other weapon in their arsenal. The aforementioned organization is the Navy SEAL Foundation, our community's recognized and respected go-to organization that provides immediate and ongoing support and assistance to active duty, deceased, and wounded warriors and their families. The foundation is currently supporting 8,900 Naval Special Warfare personnel and their families, 88 fallen warriors, 57 surviving spouses, and 75 surviving children. The Naval Special Warfare Foundation has an 11-person board of directors, many of whom are Navy SEALs. They have a paid staff of 4 full-time and 2 part-time employees. We have a 4-star rating from Charity Navigator, America's premier charity evaluator, and our foundation is ranked number 2 on their list of 10 charities worth watching. We are a Best in America's charity as certified by Independent Charities of America. The most important thing, for every dollar donated, 95% goes directly toward the conduct of our mission. 77% goes to family services and command support, 22% goes to educational programs, and 1% goes to legacy preservation, like this memorial. Our nation relies heavily on the strength, resiliency, and steadfastness of the Naval Special Warfare community. Never has so much been asked of so few, from so many, for so long. In this struggling economy, with government programs being cut, never before has the need for benevolent support been relied on so heavily. On behalf of the Navy SEAL Foundation and the SEAL family that is Naval Special Warfare, I thank you for the opportunity to pay tribute to the fallen that have willingly given their lives during Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom, as well as some of the lesser visible operations conducted in the Horn of Africa, North Africa, the Philippines, and Central and South America. God bless our military and our retirees and veterans, and also, a bit biased, the small band of brothers, our nation's silent professionals. Thank you very much.
Before you leave, everyone, be sure to say hello to Captain Olson. He talked about the SEAL Foundation, but when he retired 30 years ago or so, he had 2,000 jumps. 2,000 jumps as a SEAL. That's pretty good. Give him a hand for 2,000 jumps. Then, a few years ago, in his early 70s, he said, I'm going back up. And about a year or two ago, on his 80th birthday, he made his 4,000th jump from an airplane. So you can do it, our seniors out there. He's a bit of military history. Be sure to say hello to him.
Absolutely, well done. Unbelievable. The captain made mention to the Navy SEAL Team 6 that unfortunately were shot down on that Chinook 47 on August 6, 2011, which is known today as Extortion 17. And there's still a lot of cover-ups and various different other issues going on about that. At this point, we have a resident of Sarasota County, more importantly, the father of a SEAL Team 6 member who was killed that day, his son Brian Bill. I'd like to introduce to you, who is also a friend of mine, and a great appreciation for his contribution to the events that we're going to be doing in the future together. At this point, I'd like for you to meet Scott Bill, the father of Brian Bill, Navy SEAL Team 6 member, who was killed on Extortion 17, August 6, 2011.
Well, thank you. Hi, everybody. I bet your asses are falling asleep out there, right? Or your legs are getting awful tired. Anyway, I'll be short. I've changed my speech about 4 times because people here have said a lot of great things that I wanted to say to you also. But anyway, I've got one consolation for Darren's dad. My son's team is the team that took out bin Laden and put him in the sea forever. Anyway, a brief history. My son was in the middle of 5 kids, grew up kind of bumping into things all the time and kind of strange. I can remember him when he was probably 8 years old. He used to climb out the window on the 2nd floor and jump off the roof. And think, what the hell? You know, he thought he was Superman, but he didn't have a cape. Well, 20-some years later, I found out he had some special skills that very few men have. And he became a Navy SEAL. And after accomplishing that, he got invited to join a very select secretive group called DevGru, and thanks to Joe Biden, called SEAL Team 6. Nobody was ever really supposed to know about that, but now it's SEAL Team 6, not helping our enemies any. But he was able to get on, was selected and able to make that team, which is our elite team. probably the most elite fighters in the world today. And they've taken out tens of thousands of people that we don't even know about. And like Norm Olson said, Captain Olson, 10 missions going on that night. They work 24/7 around the world. We never know where they are, what they're doing, but they're doing it for those red, white, and blue stripes up there for us, and they're patriots. Anyway, I know our boys are looking down at us today, right here in this park. And I know my son wants me to say that he was not in it for himself, he was in it for us. He was a patriot. He believed in our country, believed in God. He believed in the freedoms that this country gave us. And they don't come without sacrifices. They don't come without hard work. And I think everybody sitting here damn well knows to be an American takes work. It's a privilege. It's a damn good privilege that not many people in this world have. But we're here, we're honoring our fallen today because we respect that they were Americans and we respect being American. So God bless all of you. One other thing, take a walk over to that monument and just focus on one name for me, any name on there. And think about them, think about their family, and say a prayer. God bless all of you.
Well, we come to a... yeah, right. Every minute of this has been a special sort of an event. And now we're come to the beginning of a recognition. And we'd like to do this, so don't get scared. We are going to ring the bell, but we're not going to ring it 3,000 times. So, what I'd like to do in what has become a tradition here, both at groundbreaking and also at the dedication last year, and then also here today, is we're going to do a commemorative, if you will. We're going to do the ringing of the bell by certain categories. And as I announce these categories, I'm going to ask Captain James Orman to ring the bell. The total number of individuals attacked, the official figure as of September 5th, 2002, was 2,819, for a total number of 246 passengers, and including 180 at the Pentagon, for a total of 3,245. The total number of NYPD was 23. Total number of first responders, FDNY, 343 firefighters. 37 New York, New Jersey Port Authority police, 37. There were 60 various different companies involved, 60 individuals, and the total number of employees in that regard, one company alone, Cantor Fitzgerald, lost 658. And as of a few days ago, the current count of our fallen military heroes, servicemen and women who have been killed in Iraqi freedom since 12 years ago today, and subsequently the additional 4 in Benghazi and the additional number killed on August 6th. In that regard, we now have 6,727 American fallen heroes. At this time, Colonel McClellan and his organization is going to do our 3-round volley salute. Colonel. At this time, I would like to have Roger and Mitzi, I spelt it wrong in the program, it's Mitzi, also known as Broadway or Manhattan Mitzi. She's from Manhattan, New York. They are going to play a very unique taps for us. Roger, Mitzi?
Thank you, Gene.
Day is done. Gone the sun. From the hills, from the lake, from the skies. All is well. Safely rest. God is nigh.
As we close this event, again, I want to thank you for your wonderful cooperation, participation. And my closing remarks are about what is also etched in a stone here in Patriots Park. And it reads, "Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, in order to assure the survival and success of liberty." President John F. Kennedy. At this point right now, I'd like to have the benediction, and then we will close with our star tenor, Kevin Kenny. Barbara, retired Master Sergeant Barbara Miller Vaughn.
Lord God Almighty, how do we begin to thank you for this day? How do we begin to thank you for these patriots? How do we begin to thank you for the comfort and the healing that we've shared with one another today? We don't know, Lord. We don't know how to say thank you, except to do the best we can, to be the best we can, to make you proud of us, to make our country proud of us. We ask that you give all of us, your faithful people gathered here today, and to all the people in our great nation, a zeal for justice and the strength of forbearance, that we may use our liberty in accordance with your gracious will and always to your glory. And may we be reassured once again by the words of the psalmist, "The Lord shall preserve you from evil. He shall preserve your soul. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in from this time forth and even forevermore." And the people all said resoundingly,
Amen.
Amen.
You are a tenor, right?
I don't know if I'm a tenor or not.
Used to be.
Folks, this is what it's all about, and I thank you for the privilege of doing this. Please join me. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her
through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you. Dennis Day, thank you very much. Well, folks, it is 1200 hours, and we've done it thanks to you. Thank you for your patience. God bless you all. And if you can, somewhere, someplace, sometime, visit saltoftheearthusa.org and help us to defray the cost of engraving names on this memorial that is a gift in perpetuity to the City of Venice, which is owned by you folks. God bless you and thank you.